Are you looking for valuable business advice to reach that 7-figure revenue mark? Do you want actionable tips to properly navigate through every business challenge you encounter along the way? Let Tersh Blissett and Josh Crouch be your guide in getting you to the top here at Service Business Mastery. Tune in as they sit down with world-renowned authors in business, leadership, and personal growth who share valuable insights about management, marketing, pricing, human resources, and so much more. Let their nuggets of wisdom gold guide you in owning a thriving, profitable, and ever-growing business. Here are your hosts, Tersh and Josh.
All right, we are live at Service Rocket here in Las Vegas. I am co-hostless, and if you are listening to this, that means I did not screw everything up too badly, and we've actually recorded this content. But we are here live with Patrick Lange of Business Modification Group. He has been on the show before.
Yep.
But with the fast pace of everything going on in our industry, we're trying to keep up with what private equity is looking at. And just the changes in the market over the last 12 to 18 months. So Patrick, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me back. I always enjoy being on the show with you guys. Tersh obviously isn't here with us, so we'll have to do a good job with that.
The better dressed one isn't here.
Yeah.
Sorry. That's why we don't have the camera.
Absolutely. We don't have our fancy shoes on today, so we can't be on camera, but I'm excited to be back here. And yeah, the market has been fast paced. I think that's a good way to describe it. Like you said, with private equity and the private equity interest, really the last 18 to 24 months, the business has changed. And I think that'll continue to change as we move forward. One of the big things I see is private equity moving down. So down market,
What does that mean when you say down market? What does that mean?
Well, I get a lot of calls from these private equity firms, some that are in the space, some that are not in space. And 12 months ago, everyone that would call needed to be $1 million or they had no interest in it. They wouldn't touch it. It needed to be $1 million. That was the kind of the bottom line. I've sold companies to large private equity firms this year that weren't doing $1 million in sales. So
Are they just looking to are those like new private equity traders trying to get in, or is those ones that are established, they're looking for something in a certain market?
the bulk of the ones that I've been selling in lower thresholds in the market have been existing companies, and they're kind of what I would classify as backfilling in the area they are.
Okay.
So they're already in Charlotte, North Carolina, or they're already in Dallas, Texas, and they buy another smaller company down the street, tuck it in.
So try to take more market share.
Yeah, absolutely. Get more market share. And I talk about it a lot, and we've talked about it on the show before. I mean, some of the multiples they're paying at the upper end of the market are ridiculous. I mean, they're paying big money at the upper end of the market, and that's preventing a lot of new companies from getting in. They can't come in and buy in at these crazy multiples, and some of the existing companies that are already in the space are unwilling to pay those multiples.
Yeah.
So they're looking down market, and they can get a better opportunity, a better deal, and sometimes a better company.
Yeah. No, and we're seeing a lot of that. And honestly, having conversations with contractors here in person, you hear a lot of that chatter where people have reached out to them, and they're trying to decide if they should sell, they shouldn't sell, that sort of thing. As far as the last 18 to 24 months, you said was really busy. What do you feel like? I mean, does this thing have a timeline on it where it's going to be at the point where it's like, hey, we missed the boat, it's too late to sell type of thing, now we got to wait for the next wave? Or is this going to be something that's going to be ongoing for a while, in your opinion?
Yes and no. Great way to answer it. So I think at some time it has to end. My crystal ball works as well as yours does, but economically speaking, we're seeing a change in the economy. Interest rates are higher, inflation is higher. These private equity firms are spending money that they acquired 6 months, 12 months, 18 months ago. So they've got a lot of dry powder. At some point, they're going to spend that money down. And now when they go back out to the market, you've got many people who are concerned about the economy. They may not invest as much. They may not invest as aggressively. And I'm starting to see that kind of on the bigger ones, where historically when I would get a large listing, I could call 8 to 10 companies and it would be a bidding war. And now I'm calling those same companies and they're saying, well, tell me a little bit more about it. Where is it exactly
So they're being
located?
a little smarter.
Yeah, I think
It's
so.
not
Maybe
just go snatch them up. I'll look a little deeper at some things.
Yeah, and I think it's maybe a little more conservative, worrying about what's coming up. Obviously there's a lot of changes taking place in the industry. They're talking about it here. They're talking about it at all the events that you and I both go to. With the changes in the SEER ratings coming out, with the 410 phase out, with all these things, all of that's going to have an impact on the economy and specifically on the heating and air economy.
Yeah.
And so at some point, I think you'll start to see a slowdown. When you look historically at the trades, though, it's always been desired. I mean, it's been a great place to invest. It's been a great place to own a company. Air conditioners aren't going anywhere. Even when you see an economic slowdown, typically people are going to mow their own yard. They may fix their own pipe. They're going to do some of their own things. They can't fix their own air conditioner. And that's the beauty of the industry. And so I think that's always going to continue. I do a lot of sales, kind of middle market. So a lot of companies doing $1.5 million in sales to say $8 million in sales. And I think that segment of the market is always going to be highly desired. When I first started 7 years ago, I guess, just selling heating and air companies, I would do 20 companies a year, and 15 of those companies were sold to other heating and air companies in the area.
Okay. So somebody just trying to get more market share, get more customers, or expand without
neighbor down the street, somebody whose kids are coming in, taking it over, want to be a little more aggressive, grow, a tradesperson buying at another tradesperson. 5 of them would have been to what I would classify as a financial buyer. Insurance guy who decides he wants to get in the trades, private equity person who wants to get in the trades, somebody with no experience. So now, last year, 20 companies sold, 15 of them went to private equity, 5 went to other buyers.
Interesting.
So it's a complete flip. But I think at that size in the space, in the market, I think there's always going to be a place for it. Will they pay the crazy multiples at the upper end that they're paying? I think that has to slow down at some level. But I think there's always going to be buyer in the trades. It's just, I don't think it's going to be a cliff that, well, it's too late now. But I think there's going to be a slowdown.
Well, the reason I asked that is I get asked that sometimes, like, people don't want FOMO, especially if they realize that they don't want to have their business for more than just a couple years. Like, they're getting burnt out. They just like, at some point I want to move on and try something else. And they worry about FOMO.
Sure.
Like, well, the multiples are good now, so I should sell.
Yeah, and I think people ask me the same question, I mean, should I sell now? And once again, my answer always goes back to the same, that I don't know. If I knew, I wouldn't be sitting here today. I'd be on vacation somewhere. And so at some point, the market is going to slow down. And so if you're good with where it is today, what are you waiting for?
Yeah.
If you've got 3 or 5 years, then wait. It's going to go up. It's going to go down. Things are going to go down.
So you talk to a lot of contractors about this. Is there some things that are like signs to you that they should probably think about selling now versus maybe in a few years, or maybe not even consider it yet?
Yeah. One of the hardest things that I see is companies where the owner gets tired.
Okay.
And they don't want to run the business anymore, and they're not paying as close attention to things anymore, and they're not marketing, and they're not growing, and they're not training. And so,
like, they lost the love
absolutely
for what they're doing.
And it's easy to get tired, right? I mean, it's a hard business to be in, and being self-employed is hard. And so now couple in their equipment problems and pricing and staff shortages and all the things that's been facing the industry. And so those people come to me and they'll come to me and they'll say, I want to sell my company. And they're doing $1.5 million in sales or $2 million in sales. And they say, well, I was doing $3 million last year or 2 years ago or 4 years ago. But it should sell for more. Well, buyer's not going to pay you for what you did 3 years ago because they took their foot off the gas. They're losing money just by running their business. So in that scenario, to me, it's important to look at an exit, because if you don't have the passion, you don't have the energy, you don't have the desire, don't just let it go away, because a buyer's not going to pay you for 5 years ago performance. Does that make sense?
It does. We, when I was in the HVAC industry, we bought a local competitor who's getting older. He just wanted to retire. His business was doing exactly what you were saying. He went, at some point they did $1 million, $1.5 million, but by the time we bought them, they were like $500,000. They didn't have any memberships, which, as I've been told, they're not as important this week. So this recording is probably not going to come out around the time the Facebook post came out, but apparently memberships aren't important. And we're going to get into that in just a second, but they didn't have anything.
Right.
And we took a business that didn't have much, and within half a year turned that into the exact amount of revenue they had produced for an entire year. So there's opportunities out there too for some of these guys that retire. But the problem is, I think people have been too attached to their business. My baby, I've had it for 25 years, 30 years. You're telling me it's only worth $100,000, and they it's like they get offended.
Well, and if you haven't seen the video, please go visit my YouTube channel. And I have a video on there, and I jokingly say the title of the video is "Your Baby's Ugly."
Yes.
And so
It was a great video, by the way.
So, and I say it to kind of to ease my own frustration and sadness. I sit at a lot of people's kitchen tables that have been incredible business owners and run nice businesses for 15, 20, 30 years. Nobody ever told them what a business should look like for somebody who wants to sell. So they've just slowly plugged along running their business. They meet with me, they go to the conventions and hear all these 20-time multiples and all these numbers everybody's talking about, which is a frustration of mine, because when they stand on stage and say, I sold my company for 20 times, they don't bother saying it was a $150 million company and we did X, Y, and Z.
And they had all these other things in place, and they had the operations and all of the things that small companies struggle with because they don't have the manpower to do any of that
Correct.
stuff.
And so those people don't hear that. And so I have to sit at the table and say, I'm sorry, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, what you built doesn't have any value.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to buy it. Your baby's ugly. It's their baby. They spent their entire life doing it. And it rips my heart out to have the conversation, which is why I do all the writing of articles I do, why I do all the YouTube videos I do, because most people don't know where to go.
Yeah.
They don't know who to ask. And so I try to put as much information out there as I can so they have a place to go. But back to your story you talked about with the acquisition you guys made, that they were doing $1 million or $1.5 million, and then they were doing, $800,000 or $700,000 when you finally bought them. The big problem with that is not only are you getting a multiple on less money, because now it was $1.5 million in sales that was making, whatever they were making, $150,000 or whatever that figure was. So you're getting a multiple on that net income, but then more importantly, that multiple is less. So what somebody pays for a company that's making $150,000 versus what they pay for a company doing $300,000, that multiple is different.
Yeah.
So it could go from a 2-time to a 4-time. So you went from 2 times $100,000 to a $200,000 value to 4 times $300,000 or $1.2 million value.
Yes.
At a very small increase in sales. So when that decline happens, you could go from a company that's worth $1.2 million to a company that's worth $200,000 overnight.
Yeah.
And that's the scary part that many people don't see and they don't know. So when they take their foot off the gas, they're not marketing, they're not training, they had some techs leave and they never replaced them.
Yep.
That's where I see it happen the most is, well, they had a great tech for 15 years, he left, and we're looking at retirement, so we're just not going to replace him for the next year. So then now that revenue that technician was generating is gone.
Yeah.
And they never put somebody back in that truck to go continue that revenue. And so that it just spirals down. And that's really the saddest part. So a long drawn out way to go back and answer the question of, is there somebody that you just need to say now's the time? It's those that don't have the passion or the desire or the energy to continue.
Yeah. Almost at this point, if that's you and you just don't even want to try to build it back up, get what you can at this point.
Take your chips off the table.
Yeah. So we're here at Profit Rocket. I think I call it Service Rocket. I can't remember if it's called Service Rocket or Profit Rocket. I think its name changed a few times, but it's an event going into 2023. Obviously, the industry is kind of on fire right now. There's a lot of stuff going on. Everyone's planning for the new year because we kind of got past the summer rush. When it comes to things that buyers are looking for, because that ultimately, even if you don't sell, you should be positioning your company. So no matter what happens, you get a family illness, you can sell your business. It's ready to sell. So what types of things are the current buyers out there? What are they looking for? What types of things should we be focusing on?
I have been standing on my soapbox preaching this for 6 years. And the reality is it's not changing. They want a business that's built on service and repair. Buyers do not like new construction for a lot of different reasons. Oftentimes, new construction is a race to the bottom. Now, there's certain markets where people are able to do construction profitably. Buyers are scared to death of it, so they want to build a business that's built on service and repair. They want a business where the owner's out of the truck. Oftentimes, where I see the biggest hangup in companies growing is the owner won't get out of their own way.
Yeah.
They're the best technician. They're the best bookkeeper. They're the best quote provider. They're the best at manual J's. They're the best of all these positions. They do it all. Nobody calls me and says, I'd love to buy a business where I could work in a truck all day long for 15 and 16 hours a day, go home and do paperwork for 5 hours and then do it 7 days a week.
Yeah.
Nobody calls me for that. And so getting out of your own way And they're talking about all those things here, growing your business, marketing. There's a lot of vendors here that are offering their services. So there's a lot of different ways and parts to do that. And I'm not the guy to answer that. I can just tell you what they're looking for.
Yeah.
And they're looking for a business, not a job.
Yeah.
And so if you're that, the term I hear so often, if you're that chuck in a truck and you're the guy who's riding around and working 40 hours a week, 50 hours a week, making a couple $100,000 a year, making a good living, I'm not saying that that's a bad place to be, but understand that nobody's going to pay you for that.
Yeah.
So if you're okay with that and okay with nobody not have it building value to sell, then great, keep it up, keep doing it, ride the truck for 20 or 30 years. And at the end, close it down and walk away. Don't expect somebody to write you a big check. So once again, service and repair, staying away from new construction, not being the best person in the business, and having clean books and records.
Yeah.
Buyers are going to look at your books and they're going to want to be able to see the income. And if it's like, where's Waldo to find out where your profit is, they're not going to pay you a high multiple in that. So all of those things combined, which the one thing I neglected back on the service and repairs maintenance agreements. And obviously
Okay.
that's been
It was literally sitting on the tip of my tongue.
that's been a hot topic this week on all the Facebook channels. and some people believe that that maintenance agreements are not important. I would disagree strongly about that comment.
So let's talk about that a little deeper. So you're having these conversations, buyers and sellers. What kind of questions are they asking when it comes to stuff like that? Are they asking, like, is it how many members? Is it our memberships profitable? Are they not? But like, what do they really care about?
How many and how much?
Okay.
And it's not for the how many and how much. That's only part of the question. It answers what they're looking for. But if you look at a company that focuses on maintenance agreements, and so take away the whole maintenance agreement's not worth anything fight. If you look at a company that focuses on maintenance agreements, typically they have a better relationship with their customer. They're in the customer's home multiple times. So there's an opportunity to build a better relationship. The customer's paying for their own loyalty. They're stroking you a check every year. If I'm paying you $200 and my stuff breaks, who am I calling? The guy I paid $200 for,
Right.
That's supposed to be watching over it. So it builds better loyalty. It also gives your technicians more time in the home to upsell.
Yep.
And I'm not saying upsell in a negative way to something that people don't need. I'm saying offering
Well, we all need
options.
stuff at some
Absolutely.
point. Help. We all need filters. I mean, that's a disposable thing. If you have UV lights, you need new bulbs.
Lots of other
humidifiers. I
opportunities.
mean, there's a ton of stuff that people
So
need.
in educating the consumer, spending time in the customer's home and educating them about what they have, what they don't have, and why that's important. So all of that ties in. And so my understanding is years and years ago, before I got in the business, there was buyers that would buy based on maintenance agreements. They would say, you have X amount of maintenance agreements.
That's all they would look at.
And they would say, we're going to pay you X amount per maintenance agreement. That's how they would value your company. I don't see that at all today. However, there's a direct correlation when you look at companies that focus on maintenance agreements. When you look in large quantities, when you look at their revenue, the amount of revenue that comes from those customers, how much lower their advertising budget is.
Yeah.
And they're looking at all those things. So there's a direct correlation to focusing on a maintenance customer, delivering quality service to that maintenance customer, delivering a better relationship to that customer, deepening the wallet share that you're getting from that customer. All those things factor all into that. So although they're not saying, I'm going to pay you X amount per maintenance agreement, it's leading to higher revenue. And so when you look at a business, and I look at tax returns all week long of companies, when I look at the first thing I look at is their marketing budget. I can tell you if they're spending over 10% on marketing,
Sure.
they're a sales organization as opposed to a service organization.
Yeah.
Because if you look at a service organization that has a lot of maintenance agreements, they're working on their existing customers. They're not spending that marketing money. They are to grow for future growth. But when you look at a company that's spending 20 and 30% of their budget on marketing, they have to find somebody new to sell something to every day. And so that translates, sure, the revenue numbers may be higher, but it's not a deeper relationship. And why do buyers want to buy long-term companies? Because there's long-term relationships.
Well,
there.
it's like to get out of our industry a little bit, that's why these, the Netflixes of the world, all these small memberships that we pay for regularly now in our daily life, these companies, when they merge and sell and acquire, it is billions of dollars because they know that money is going to keep coming in. And if they make little tweaks or maybe they have more efficient processes, they can increase the margins, or they can cut employees, or they have better tools and software, which a lot of these they have ServiceTitan, they have Sarah, they have some of these platforms that help automate and make things efficient. Like I was talking to someone, I won't mention any company names, but it's a big company here in Vegas. So if you can't figure out who that is, but they were looking to acquire someone, and they have their own call center. Like they essentially, if they buy the company, it removes that office staff because they have it all set up already. It's all
Systematized.
It's all systematized. They just throw you in their system. They know their system is efficient because they have hundreds of millions of dollars to focus on this stuff, and they just make it more efficient. So they know their profit's going to go up just by throwing you in their system. Now they just gained your customer list, and they're off and running. They're making money back on their investment right away.
Well, these larger companies are going to look at what your costs are. Obviously you take some of these big buyers that are doing 80, 100 million, 800 million, $1 billion in sales. Their cost of equipment is so much less than yours.
Oh, well, that's anything with big buying groups.
Absolutely.
You can get huge rebates, and which ultimately, I mean, when you're competing as a small guy and you get book price or list price,
Correct.
and you have to compete with someone who's getting each piece of equipment for $300 or $350 less than you per piece of equipment, that's tough.
Absolutely.
Because they can withstand a recession because they can just they'll sell it, they'll make 5% net, and they'll just make sure that they keep their existing customers and keep the ball rolling there.
And I've seen some of these big buying, we'll call them buying groups for lack of a better term, that they're able to pay your employees more.
Yeah.
So they're taking that savings and put it in the employee's pocket. So now these employees that you're competing for, they're giving nights and weekends off. They're not on call. They're driving brand new trucks. They're getting more money than they're getting working for you. So there's economies of scale.
Yeah.
And these buyers know that. So when they look at your business, they're not only looking at what it's doing, they're knowing in their mind what can it do for them.
Yeah.
But they're not going to pay you on what it can do for them. That's the profit they're looking to buy.
Right.
And that's why they're buying it that way. So that's where their opportunity lies. Having the other boxes checked, though, are what helps you from a seller standpoint to be able to say to them, we're maximizing value and here's our net income based on that.
Yeah. No, this is great stuff, and it's very timely as we move into 2023, because the market's going to continue to shift. Nobody really knows if we're in a recession or not.
According to the definition, we are.
According to the definition, but it's kind of like we don't really talk about it.
Nobody wants to admit it.
It's like we don't talk about Bruno. So, but Patrick, thank you for stopping by. You're always a ton of knowledge and great stuff. I know you're hanging out with Tersh, I think, in a week or so down at the Florida-Georgia game. Hopefully you guys get out of that safely. I know it's a little hectic down there in the Southeast, but thanks for stopping by. It was great to have you on the show again. And I believe I recorded this properly, so you guys will all get to listen to it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for having me, and I'm love to come back anytime.
Awesome. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Hey there, listener. This is Tersh with Service Business Mastery Podcast. Check out more information on Company Cam and some of the great features that they offer.
Are you an HVAC? Looking to save an hour a day every day? Are you looking for the latest tool to help your business scale? Well, we have the tool.
You maybe couldn't tell, but I'm no HVAC tech. And the thought of telling a pilot light from a gas valve has me sweating bullets. Hi, I'm Jordan, and I work at Company Cam. I may not have the tools to fix a furnace, but I do have the tool for your photo documentation needs. See what Company Cam can do for you.
Keep all your different project photos organized by date and location while using annotations and comments to keep workflows clear, all from your phone. Check it out today.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Service Business Mastery. Now that you are equipped with essential business advice from this impactful conversation, you are one step closer to becoming the successful owner of your dreams. If this episode has been helpful to your business journey, don't forget to subscribe to the show, leave a rating, and share it with other owners as well. Visit servicebusinessmastery.com to learn more.